All right, it's time for another video. I had two different requests this week based off of some of the videos that I put up. But first, we're going to start off as we always do with what's in my pocket. So this morning, I picked up my Para 3 in Crewwear, in Crewwear steel. Went out to the gun range, used it out there, came back home, broke down some boxes. Good knife, still. This hump right here, it really pushes my thumb up. Now my hand is larger than most, but you can see here, compared to a Paramilitary 2, my thumb would be able to, I would be able to kind of choke back on the handle and my thumb would be flatter, but here it's kind of crunched up. And yes, this is the way I prefer to grab knives with the forward choil, is on that forward choil, even my Striders. So this is the first knife I have. The other knife I carried with me was my Strider SAL, and this one is with the ghost stripes, and you can see there all of the discoloration and everything. That's from when I cut my iPhone 6 Plus in half. You can check that video out on my channel as well. But now let's get to this video. Well, I got an unexpected mail call today. I've been feeling like I'm missing out on some of the knives that it seems like everyone owns. And one of those knives would be the Opinel. And I figured that since I've started this channel, I need to get some of the knives that are fairly common and fairly easy to come by, and that the $13 that I paid for this knife, I couldn't justify not having one of these knives to at least talk about on my channel. Not to mention, I do think that this knife has its place. It may not be exactly the knife that I would go to all the time, but I think that this knife has its place. Now, this particular knife is the Opinel number 9. And it came in this packaging here, and I would have done an unboxing, but I felt like there are countless unboxings, there are countless people talking about this knife in general, not necessarily the number 9, but talking about the Opinel in general. You may ask, why did I buy a number 9? Well, this is going to sound crazy, but I felt like it was close in size to the S&G, which is one of my favorite knives of all times. This here is my favorite Strider, period. And I felt like the S&G is a good size for me, so I felt like the Opinel number 9 would be a good size for me. And you can see there, they're pretty close in comparison, pretty close in size. And I'm sure that that's a crazy comparison. You may not even see this comparison anywhere else, but that's what popped into my head. So the reason why I wasn't even going to do an initial impressions video, but the reason why I thought I would is because I got the knife, I opened it up, I'm about to make some tacos. I was going to use the knife in the kitchen, which is one of the uses that I see this filling in for. And I noticed a few things. The first thing I thought about when I was looking at this knife, researching this knife, and I didn't see anybody else cover, is I always wondered, how in the world do you sharpen all the way down to the heel of the blade here? Well, I don't know if it's showing up in the video, but that edge, yeah, you can see it there. That edge only goes down so far. And then this part is dull here. It's not sharpened. So that is one thing that owning this knife answered for me. The other thing, and now keep in mind, I'm not complaining. This is a $13 knife. I'm not complaining at all. I think it's going to serve its function. I know how to sharpen. I'm going to put an edge on it, use it in just a few minutes actually. But when I looked at the edge of the knife, and I don't know if that'll come across. Well, yeah, you can see it there. Look at all those shiny spots on the bevel, on the edge of the knife. Anywhere you see a shiny spot, for those of you that don't sharpen or are not familiar, anytime you see a shiny spot, that's going to be a nick, a chip, a roll, a dull spot, a spot in your knife that's not going to cut. This edge is full of them. So the one thing I would say, if I was going to buy this knife, I would make sure that either I could get to a person that could sharpen the knife for me. I knew how to sharpen the knife, or I didn't mind sending it off to be sharpened, because this knife is definitely, you can see, I'm not too concerned about how sharp this edge is. This edge is not, it's not a good edge at all. So I would definitely make sure that you could put an edge on a knife before you bought this. Not that that makes this a bad knife, but if you're going to buy this, I feel like it's important that you know exactly what you're going to get into. So at least my specific example, which the other ones that I've seen have come in a cardboard little package, box, whatever. So I had not ever seen them in a Ziploc bag like this. But I don't know. Maybe it's just my copy. Maybe it's just because I got the carbon version. I don't know. But this knife, I plan on using in the kitchen, testing out, checking out, getting to know, getting some feedback from using the knife, and reporting back. Again, I don't think that this is a knife that I had to review. I don't think this is a knife I had to talk about, but I felt like if I'm going to have a channel, this is one of the knives that everybody seems to have, but I don't have. I never have owned this knife, so I'll say that up front. I've never owned an Opinel at all. If you're not familiar, I guess let me back all the way up. It's a wooden handled knife. It's a French design, French made knife that started in, I believe, the 1800s. At the time, it did not have this rotary lock, which works when the blade is closed to keep the knife blade from coming out. You can see there. And it works when the knife is opened to keep the knife from closing. So you can see I'm pressing pretty hard and it won't close. My understanding is that this collar lock, or whatever they call it, whatever the trademark name is not original to the design. My understanding is that this collar lock, pivot lock, rotation lock was added sometime in the 1950s, if I'm not mistaken. But this is just a very simple knife, beechwood handle, carbon steel blade. There is a rotary lock collar around the action of the knife to keep it closed and to keep it open. The knife is not centered, but again, that's not a criticism. I'm just showing you the knife. I don't know if the blade is bent. I don't know. I would assume that this slot is cut into the wood correctly, cut into the wood in a straight line. So I'm going to assume that the blade is bent some, but again, it's not really a big deal. It's a $13 knife. The wood is soft. The carbon steel is going to patina anyway. It's not going to rub the knife at all. The other thing that I did notice when I got the knife is it already came with some rust on the spine of the blade, and I believe you can see that there. So this is going to be a steel that you're going to need to keep up with. The knife, if I'm not mistaken, the Opinel number 9, the number of the knife refers to the number of centimeters of the blade. So this is a 9-centimeter knife. Again, roughly the size of an S&G. It's fairly thinly ground. This is just a knife that's meant to be a working knife without a lot of expense. So I'm looking forward to putting this knife to some use. First of all, putting an edge on it, then putting it to some use, and just kind of seeing what this knife will do. I'll report back once I have more use on it. Well, since I hadn't put the camera up, I figured I'd just roll straight into the part where the knife is sharpened. You can see there, now there's a relatively shiny bevel. You can see I laid it pretty flat on, I used my Spyderco double stuff medium and fine, and I use my Flex Strops black, white, and green strop, quadratic strop. And now you can see there's no glint down here on this part, some towards the heel, but like I said, that part's not sharp. There is some up towards the tip. I have not gotten the tip sharpened out. But this was, keep in mind, this was maybe 5 minutes total running on medium, running on medium of the ceramic, fine of the ceramic, black compound, white compound, and then green compound. So that's 5 minutes total. The one thing I will say that I noticed from this knife than others is that this steel must be pretty soft, because it just, if you sharpen, you could probably literally watch the edge wear away. Now, again, I'm not knocking the knife. That is excellent for somebody that needs to just get a quick edge on a knife with whatever you have available. I also, knowing that, would recommend this knife for someone that's learning how to sharpen. So you can get into this knife for $13. You can probably get into some of the other ones for a little bit cheaper, and you can just get yourself a basic stone and learn your angles, learn how a knife reacts to a strop, those sorts of things. So I can definitely see some purposes for this knife, and there's no wonder this knife has been around since, like I said, the 17 or 1800s. So this is clearly a knife that serves a purpose, is functional, and many people agree that it's a good knife. So I'm gonna use the knife now. Like I said, I'm about to make some tacos. I'm gonna use the knife to do some food prep, and I'll report back after I've used the knife for a bit. So again, I appreciate you guys watching the video. Thank you.